Photo Diaries podcast. I'm your host, Grace Costa, a commercial photographer of over 2 decades, a photo-based artist and a photography mentor. This podcast opens up a secret diary about the world of the photography industry. We'll bring you inspiring interviews with industry professionals, as well as stories and tips to help you propel through your photography journey, whether you're just starting out or a seasoned pro. Thanks for joining me today. Now let's open the latest diary. Hi friends, welcome to today's episode. Do I have a treat for you? Today we're going to talk with my very good friend and business buddy Trish Johnstone from E10 Graphic Design Studio. We're going to talk about client relationships, which is something I think a lot of you have been requesting lately in the DMs. You've had some situations that you'd like to share with me, and I think Trish is the right person to ask because she's an expert in her field and she builds beautiful relationships with her clients who often turn out to be her friends. So I think we'll have a lot to learn from Trish, and I'd love to welcome her today. So hi, Trish. Nice to see you.
Hello. Thank you for that introduction. That's so lovely.
Well, I'll allow you to introduce yourself a little bit more formally. So for my audience who hasn't yet followed you or hasn't seen your work, let us know who you are and who you serve in your graphic design studio. And yeah, let us know all about your business.
Awesome. Well, E10 is a Canberra-based graphic design studio. And there's 3 of us in the team, and we've been around for about 5.5 years now. So we've grown to a team of 3. We support small and medium-sized businesses in their graphic design and marketing. And usually our clients are anyone from a sole trader up to a team of maybe 15 to 20. So we love working with small business and being able to have contact with the owners of the business and the decision makers and have a really great relationship with them and understand their business to the absolute DNA of it. But yeah, we're Canberra based. The 3 of us work remotely from each other, but especially in the last 12 months, I think we're nailing the remote working relationship with each other and the productivity, and so we're coming up to 6 years soon, which I'm really proud of.
Amazing. And you've grown over that time. And also now you're in a new part of your business because you've just become a new mum with your little bubba. Yes. So now you'll be juggling not only a team, but a new baby as well. So how's that going so far?
It's good. It's a new challenge, which I've welcomed the challenge. I think I very quickly realised that I overestimated what I could get done in a single day. By the end of the week, I can usually get a few things done, but I had to really readjust my thinking on, I guess, the relationship with the business and being present with little Angus. And we're still working it out, but I'm excited to be here with you today. It's almost like my little business break, and we get to chat about some awesome things. But yeah, it's going really well. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's a cute little bubba. And so when you first started your studio, how did you go about actually sourcing clients in the first place? Because when I first started and I took the leap out of corporate, I didn't have any clients and I didn't really have strategies to gain clients aside from LinkedIn and networking. And I think I just got clients through people I knew in the first year. But for you in a design studio, how do you find clients in the first place?
Well, it's interesting because E10 had a bit of a different inception. We actually started doing wedding invitations right at the start. So I had a few contacts in the wedding industry through photographers and celebrants, and I saw a gap in terms of invitations that were personalised and bespoke and of a higher design quality, but really making sure that those invitations were a reflection of the couple who were getting married. So I started off doing wedding fairs. I'd go and I'd stand at my stall and I'd talk to people about their weddings. And then I found after that I was doing more jobs for the people within the industry who needed rebranding or business cards or flyers or booklets to market their own businesses. And slowly, even at wedding fairs, people would come up to me and say, well, do you do other types of graphic design? Because I have a business and I need business cards. So the wedding fairs are actually this really great networking opportunity for me too. So I was running the business for a year before I left my full-time corporate job. I was working at a superannuation fund, and I had enough in the pipeline to feel confident to leave. But the majority of the work that we get now, and really the whole time I've been running the business, is word of mouth. And that's really valuable to me because it means that, I guess, the relationships that I've formed with my clients makes them comfortable to refer us to other people, which I think is a huge compliment. It's a huge risk on that client to refer someone, because just because they've had a great relationship doesn't mean that we're going to be a good fit for someone else. But I usually find that if we have someone in common who we get along with, it's usually a good fit anyway. So really at the beginning, it was networking through the wedding industry, and it sort of grew from there. I put in a lot of hard yards at networking events, and I met you, and then you introduced me to more people and then more people. So I think it's just been that relationship building and networking. And even today I got a phone call saying I spoke to someone at another studio and they recommended I give you a call and I really need some help. So even today it's working.
And do you find, because most of them are coming through referrals, are they still your ideal client or not necessarily? Because as business and service providers, we're always looking to work with our ideal client. So if it comes from referrals, are they usually a good match? And if they're not, what do you do about it?
Majority of the time they are a good fit. It's hard because you want to honour the person who has referred them on, and you don't want that new client to go back to their friend and say, I spoke to Trish and it just wasn't a good fit, and how could you refer me onto it? So majority of the time, if we have that person in common, it's usually a good fit. But sometimes these things just have a way of working out for the best, like whether or not you end up working for them. But I think it's about being honest with yourself up front and saying, is this a client? Is this a relationship I want to take on? 6 months from now, am I going to be having a coffee with this person? Am I going to be calling them for a chat? Or is this more of a transactional relationship? Most of the time it works out, but I think there've been a couple of times where, we get some red flags right from the beginning that we have to really listen to. But I think the most important thing is just be respectful of the person who has referred you on and make sure that relationship is still nurtured as well.
Yeah, that's important. And so as a graphic designer, you are spending a lot more time with your clients than, say, a photographer might. So our relationship between a client might only be a day or a week or possibly a month, aside from return business. But when you have a single client, they could be working with you for up to 6 months. Is that right?
Yeah, we've had projects that have gone for a year or 6 months. And like you said, clients that keep coming back for multiple projects because we're their go-to creative partner. Yes, when we were talking about this the other day, I realised that the relationship that we have with our clients could, in a single project, could be 3, 6, 12 months. So it's important that we keep up the lines of communication and we spend a lot of time in that briefing process so that we kick off the way we intend to go forward.
Yeah, so in the initial process with your clients, I know you have like a formal design process structure that is on your website. You send that to clients, but can you explain it to my listeners so that we can understand how clean and succinct and how you are communicating with your client in the onboarding process?
Yeah, sure. And this is a process that I guess I've honed over the years and seen, I guess, in different working situations, what's worked and what hasn't worked. And this works for our studio. But I'm really interested to see, I guess, how it compares to your business as a photographer, because we do have different outputs and different, extra rounds of amendments. And we still have that finished art process, but it's slightly different. So we start with a really thorough briefing and admin onboarding with new clients. Usually people come to us for a specific project to begin with. And so we really dive into what they're asking for and if that is what they need. I think that's something very, very important to establish. You think that you need a flyer, but actually you need social media. So we ask those sort of questions.
Yes.
And how we work out, I guess, the best solution is we talk about the end goal. Like, what are we actually wanting your target audience to do? You know, are we wanting them to go to a website? Do we want them to buy your product? Do they want to just know who you are and pick you over another brand? So we ask a lot of questions, and this whole design process is really front loaded in that briefing stage. And we found that if we do that, the rest of the process just goes like clockwork. So the time that we invest in the beginning is quite valuable. So then once we've done the admin and the quoting and the briefing and the onboarding with contracts and scope, and we're really clear on everything, we'll provide a concept. And if that's, say, a logo, we'll do at least 2 concepts for them. Sometimes we can just, if it's a flyer or a business card, we just go straight to the just a single concept because it's not really warranted. They have some time to mull over that, and then we make alterations. So alterations is the next step in that, and that can go back and forth a couple of rounds if we need to. The next stage is approval. So we get the final tick from everything, and then we produce the finished art. So that might be, say, with a logo, it would be your style guide. It would be the JPEGs and the EPS and all the file library that you need. You need a banner. We would prepare that. So just specific to, again, coming back to the scope. After finished art, there's sort of a stage that we don't always, depending on the scope of the project, we go to printing and delivery. And so we print manage, say you're doing an annual report or a publication, we speak to the printer and we organise the proofs and we organise it to be delivered on your doorstep. And the most important step right at the end, which we've built into our design process, so it is a non-negotiable part of the process, and I think it's really relevant to what we're speaking about today, is the follow-up and making sure that the reports arrived on time, making sure they're happy with the result, making sure that something hasn't got lost along the way, asking how it's been received. Did the target audience comment on it? Did they love it? Did they not love it? I guess that's the part of our nurturing. The nurturing part of the relationship is that we always follow up. We want to be in this relationship for a long time. So if it was a transactional relationship, we would probably we'd drop it on their doorstep and wouldn't talk to them much after that. But we genuinely want to know that what we've done and what we've worked on as a team has worked.
So then after that, to continue building the relationship with their business, as opposed to just the client being a person, but the business in general, is there something down the track where you get in touch with them and find out what else they're working on throughout the year so that you can get involved in new projects for them?
Yeah, I'd like to say that we have a formal system for that, but it really, we don't. But I think because of the relationships and the trust that we have as a team, it comes quite organically to us. So, for example, we have an accounting firm in Brisbane that we do work for, and I think the end of last year they had some signage installed. So we followed up with them to say, we really want to know how the signage company went. Was it a great experience for you? Was the quality what you were looking for? But also send us some photos because we're not in Brisbane, so we really want to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
In doing that follow-up with them, it's been 2 months since that happened, but it shows that we really care about the result.
Yes.
But in saying that, we've got clients that we just, it could be as simple as commenting on an Instagram post or sending them a text and saying, I read this article and it made me think of you, or emailing them, this came into my inbox and I think you might find it useful. So there's those touch points can come in many different forms at many different times. But if your clients are front of mind anyway, it should come quite naturally.
Yeah.
I do have an industry colleague who has a really great system, which I think she still does it quite organically, but it's a really good reminder. Every day she writes up a different letter of the alphabet on her whiteboard, and she'll get in touch with every client with that name.
Geez, she must have a lot of clients.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, there's 26 letters in the alphabet, and if you contact all the A's on one day and all the B's the next day, every client will hear from you once a month. I think that's a very realistic time frame of touch points. A client having at least maybe 2 touch points a month, if not at least 1. And that's how she reminds herself. She writes a letter on the top of her whiteboard.
And I guess she could do that really simply just by writing them a quick email or a quick text, as you guys do. And it doesn't have to be through formal email marketing if that's not part of her studio workflow. Yeah, I love that reminder, because there's lots of ways to nurture clients, right? It can be through the ways that you've mentioned. It can also be like, if you knew by chance the anniversary of the business, you could send them a little card in the mail or a voucher, or sometimes with me with referrals, I send the referee a little gift in the post. There's lots of little creative strategies you can use to nurture the client relationship. Right?
Yeah. And I think it's about knowing that client as well, because I love when you've sent me chocolates in the past, and that's been such a lovely little delight to have chocolates delivered to my doorstep. And I think that and I know that you genuinely appreciate the referrals that I've given you. And I think that it's definitely not expected, but that's what makes it kind of exciting for me, because I just go, oh, who's this from? Oh, it's from, oh, wow, like chocolates for me. What a lovely Friday treat. So it's also about knowing how that client responds as well. We have a client that we worked for in Hong Kong and China, and there were cultural differences in terms of gifting, and I guess I thought, I'll send them maybe send them a hamper or something. And when I spoke to someone who worked in that space, they said, oh, it's not really the done thing. Maybe send them an email and acknowledge the success of the project, but they're definitely not expecting a hamper.
Okay.
So I think it's just, some clients will just love a personalised text, and then other clients, a gift is quite meaningful. And then for other clients, say like these, our Hong Kong client, it might actually cause problems because they've got to declare things that they declare.
Oh, yeah. Wouldn't even think of that. Absolutely.
Yeah. I deliberately at Christmas time, I don't send my superannuation clients any gifts, but I send them a nice email, but I don't send them any gifts because I have to declare it. So it sort of takes the magic out of it. But yeah, I think there's all different ways to do it. And I think it's just about knowing what your client will respond to and feel appreciated by.
And speaking of getting to know your clients, because I know part of your strategy, getting to know your clients, is really in depth, and you do it in a really fun and engaging way. So can you share a little bit with us about how you really get to know your clients? Besides the standard questions, you have like this quirky way of getting to know people, and you keep tabs on the real intricacies of somebody's personality. And an example is when you introduced me to a mutual client of ours, and you just had like these key points in the email. And it was like, Grace is a fellow chai lover who uses the best honey to make her chai and things like this. And I just thought, you really get to know people just in a unique way. And I haven't seen other people do it the way you do it. So share some little secrets with us.
Well, I stole that from a client, actually. She's a good friend of mine, Louise Morris. She invited us all to an awards night, and she introduced the table to each other before the night, so we would all know who's coming. And she had this list of, there were 10 people on the table, and she said, Trish is a graphic designer. She owns this business, and she'd link, LinkedIn and website and everything so people could have a read. But would also say, Trish has a border collie and his name's Murphy. Ask her about how she loves cooking. And she did that for everyone on the table. And you're right, it showed that she knew people, but it also made people comfortable with talking to each other on the night. And even one of them, she said, don't ask Susie about her renovations. So you could already go, look, I know you're doing renovations, but how bad is it? And you had this talking at dinner. So it was quite lovely.
Very clever.
I think what it comes down to is genuine hospitality. So if I invited you to my house and we were having a barbecue and you didn't know anyone there, if I was going to introduce you to people and then sort of go off and keep hosting the rest of the barbecue and making sure everyone's taken care of, I don't want to just lump you in a situation that, is going to feel awkward. I'd introduce you and I'd say something interesting so you could start talking and then you can take it from there.
Yes.
I think that's what we try to do even in the briefing process, because people will call you up and in a very short amount of time you have to get to know each other, so that it's a mutually beneficial thing. So there's no point in each of us holding back information, because ultimately it's not going to help the situation. So if I came to you and I said, I need some photos taken, and you'd be like, okay, well, what are they for? Where do you want to go? What's the purpose? Why are you having new photos? And if I just went, I just needed photos, I guess you could take photos and they'll look lovely because you're a very talented photographer. But if suddenly I said, well, I need new photos because I've just had a baby and I'm not feeling very confident about, how my body has changed or how they'll be perceived with my brand, and I'm feeling a bit nervous. So we'll still take the same photos, but you will have empathy and you will have creative ideas that will make me feel comfortable and result in us having some photos which I can't help but want to use.
Yes.
So we ask a lot of questions about, have you done this exercise before? What worked? What didn't work? Why are you coming to us over another designer? Why would I buy your product? So we ask very conversational questions that I guess we have a checklist of things that we want to find out, but ultimately we just have a chat with the person, get to know them. And my favourite question is just like, why are you in business? Why do you get up in the morning and open the doors to your business and do work? Why you could sleep in? Why do you keep doing that? Yeah, I find out why people have a passion for what they do. And usually it's, oh, well, I tried to find this same product and I couldn't, or I never felt supported in this situation and I don't want other people to feel that same way. And suddenly you get a real idea for people's why they're in business, but just what literally, like the fire in their belly and the spark that, I find that just so inspiring to find out why people are even doing this.
Yeah, I do too, actually. I had a client meeting this week, and for me, getting to know this couple in business, it started with noticing what was on the wall in their office, which was some abstract paintings. And as you know, I'm an art lover, I'm an artist myself, so of course I'm going to pick that out. And it started the conversation with the new client, and I said, oh, who painted these? Where'd you get these lovely paintings from? And then that sort of broke the ice immediately, that it wasn't all about business and what we're here to do and get in, get out kind of attitude from me. It was about building some warmth, building a rapport, and then easing into, okay, what are we here to do? What are we here to achieve? And then the conversation turned into more of a strategy because of the questions I was asking, and pulling out things that they hadn't even considered, because they're just starting. They've been in business a long time, but they've worked for others. And now they're starting their own journey. So they hadn't really nutted out the ins and outs of their brand. So having the service provider pull out the right questions helps not only build the rapport, but build the trust that you're there to help them with more than just photos or more than just graphic design. You actually care, and I want to get it right for you, and I want to give you the best outcome.
I think that's really like what you said about just, you almost break the ice, and you'll find that a personal conversation will flow into a business conversation very easily. So one of the best piece of advice that I got given, I was doing an unpaid internship in my fourth year of uni, my final year of uni, and the owner of the business said, never jump into any meeting or anything with business first. Always just ask how they are, or ask them questions about themselves. Never just go straight into business, because it's just it's just not the way to do things. And I noticed him do it a couple of times. We'd be in a meeting and he'd say, even just, how's your day been? Or how are things going since we last talked? And how are your kids? And then we'd get into business. And in one day in particular, I was first in the office and he was there and he was really stressed, and there was a meeting that had sort of been flung on him and he had to prepare all this stuff. And I walked in the door and I hadn't even sat down. He goes, Trish, I need your help. I need you to get 10 images from this site. I need you to, and he was rattling on and he just stopped himself and he went, how was your weekend? Yeah, it was good, thanks. Yeah, it was good. And it's not that he was checking a box for the advice that he'd given me, but he just went, what am I doing? Like, you've just walked in the door, you haven't even sat down, you haven't had a coffee, and I'm like barking orders at you. And he just stopped himself and went, oh, I can't believe I did that. How was your weekend? And I saw it in action, and he prioritized the relationship that we had, not the work that we needed to output. And I tried to do that in everything that I've done. And I went back and told this man, I was like, that's the best advice you ever gave me. And he's like, did I say that? Yeah, you did. And I literally do it every day because of you. And he's like, oh, I'm pretty good then. Oh, no, that was a good bit of advice.
And that shows his value. One of his highest values is relationships. And then when he caught himself not being accountable to his highest value, he caught himself and he's like, oh my gosh, no, let's put the relationship first. So he sort of had that self-awareness to pull himself back and start again. That's really cool.
Yeah. And something else that I sort of thought of what you said before, and it's something that I tell my students at the University of Canberra, one of the lectures that I give them is about getting information from the brief. I think it's about having this mutual respect of your client has come to you for a reason because they can't do what you do, and they need to respect your talents. But in the briefing process, you need to respect their knowledge because, I'm a graphic designer, but I'm not a lawyer. Mm-hmm. So who am I to say that we should do X, Y, and Z with the law? I actually need to be sort of humble in my approach and say, teach me about this specific element of the law so that I can write that on your behalf. And why don't we say that word? And why do we say this word? And will this one be misleading in our marketing copy? So I think it's having that mutual respect and a genuine conversation, not just one-sided brief, it's a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Switching gears now to setting boundaries with clients. And another listener said to me the other day, she had a situation where her client wasn't happy with the end result. And she dealt with it with a bit of defense. Her ego was up and she felt defensive and she wanted to defend her position and the work she had created for this client. But we've had this discussion. With your industry, you wouldn't let a client be unhappy at the end of the relationship because you have nurtured them, you've communicated clearly right throughout the process. So you're ensuring throughout the management of their project that every little aspect along the way is ticking a box, is getting approved, is meeting their expectations. But with photographers, sometimes it doesn't work like that because we turn up to a shoot, especially if it's an event, which it was in this case, they might not have briefed her properly. So she's just going to do what she thinks he needs and what he said he wanted. And then in the end, it wasn't delivered to his expectations. So in a situation where clients are not happy or a bit challenging, how do you proceed to sort of nurture the relationship so you don't burn the bridge and you manage your ego and you manage your authority as a service provider, as an expert in your side of things, but keep it kind, keep it managed well and, respectful?
I always try to remember, as sort of what I've said before about, I'm the expert in graphic design and, Susie might be the expert in the law. There's a respectful way of sort of telling someone that, or educating them, I guess is a better word. Like the reason why, it's not Susie's fault that she doesn't know about bleed and crop marks and resolution. I wouldn't expect her to know about that in the same way that I don't know about constitutional law. And she doesn't expect me to know that. So I think instead of saying, no, we can't do that, you need to explain, well, the reason why we need to do this is because the plate on the printing shifts, or we can't use that colour on screen because it's not accessible for web viewers. So I think just giving a very good reason for why you can and can't or have to do something is usually where that effective communication comes into play. So if I said, if you asked me out for coffee and you said, let's go to Bob's coffee shop, and I just went, no, I don't want to go there. You'd be like, well, why not? And if I said, well, the last time I went there, my coffee was cold. Can we go to Susie's coffee shop? You'd be like, oh, fair enough. Yeah, let's, do you know Bob was serving cold coffee? Yeah, let's go check out Susie's coffee shop. So instead of it just me shutting down your idea, I've actually explained to you, why we need to go to a different coffee shop and because of my experience. But I think it's also our job as the creative professional to draw that out. And sometimes it's like blood from a stone, but we need to draw out and keep asking why. Why is it that we use that word in law? Okay, like that's legally required, so we need to, that's a non-negotiable. Instead of, you don't know what you're talking about, I'm the graphic designer, I'm going to change it and not explain to you why.
And I guess in this situation with my listener, what she could have done initially in the first instance is ask more questions to the client to ensure that she had the better brief. But I guess that comes with experience. She's only new as a photographer, so maybe this is a situation that has taught her a lot. But asking more questions, ensuring that the brief is more clear so that she knows exactly what she's there to do. She's going to deliver better than his expectations and impress him rather than burn this relationship, of client.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So you might think that you both on both sides have an idea of very clear scope. And then halfway through the project, someone asks a question and, can you just send over the native files? And you think, well, that wasn't included in the scope, even though I thought I was being clear about it. But this whole time you've assumed you'll get the native files. I've assumed that you won't get the native files, which is where my contract comes, our terms of engagement come into play. And that's a very useful document so that we're very, the brief and the scope is very clear from the beginning, and that's why we ask double the amount of questions to make sure that we're talking about we're on the same page basically.
So then if a client does come to you and say, I want the native files, so for photographers that would equate to a raw file, and it's already in your contract that you do not provide the raw file, the native file formats of the design, will you confidently point them back as stated in the contract, this is not included? Because they would have read it, a month ago before you even started, but then forgotten that wasn't part of the deal. So you'll confidently just remind them. I mean,
people can read things but not read things. So we don't sort of, I guess, have a go at them for not reading every single word of a contract. I mean, obviously they've signed it, but ultimately clients can have as many rounds of alterations as they like. And they can have the raw files, and they can make any reasonable or sometimes unreasonable request, but there's just a cost involved in that. So I'm very happy to hand over the native files as long as we're compensated for that. And it's very clear in our terms of engagement, and it's very clear on the quote that I give. If I think there's ever going to be any misunderstanding about the files, I make a note of it on the initial quote to say, this excludes the native files, or the end product that you get will be a PDF and a JPEG, not the InDesign file. So I'm almost over clear about that, just in case it hasn't quite sunk in. But then we have a contract to protect us at the end of the day.
Okay, yeah, the contract is so important for service providers like design studios and photography studios, right? And I think when you're starting out in business, you don't know the right things to put in a contract unless you're dealing with a proper lawyer and they're writing it for you. So you kind of come across these little mishaps along the way, and then next client you realize, oh, damn, I need to protect myself next time because this happened with a client in the past. Even, photographers protecting themselves not only against extra requests, but, losing files. That's got to be in the contract too, right? So in your contract, do you have anything that protects you from any file loss or things like that?
I'm fairly sure we do. I think it's sort of worded in the way that we archive all our files, and our file size isn't as big as yours. So, you've got your backups of hard drives and everything, but we archive ours quite successfully without having to go overboard. In saying that, if someone comes to us 10 years from now and my studio's, touch wood, burnt down, and all my hard drives and the cloud has collapsed on itself, all the redundancies that we have in place, 10 years from now, I may not be in business, or maybe the business is called something else, or maybe I've sold the business. So in the contract, I think we say, make sure you save your files in a safe place, because we can't, through the archiving process, we can't guarantee that we will have the files you need when you need them. It's much more eloquent.
Yeah, I've got something like that too. Yeah,
because practically, if you came to me 5 years ago with a project, we've been in the case where we've had clients come back to us 5 years later and we have had their files, but it would be reasonable to expect that maybe those files don't exist anymore. Yeah, there's a lot of things in our contract. And I was just thinking about when you said, learning from your mistakes and everything. The first contract that I had, which at the beginning, I think the first year of business, there was someone that didn't pay us, and it took a while to recover the money, and it was a large sum of money. And thank goodness I had a contract in place, but it's what spurred me on to get a better contract after that. So I went to my lawyer and I had it rewritten, and it was a lot tighter and the language was clearer. And she said to me, you don't think that you actually need to say this, but nowhere in your contract does it say that you must pay my invoice.
That's so simple.
It was so simple, because you think, well, I've issued you an invoice, you should pay it. But
yeah,
it was something like, there's an overdue fee if your invoice is late, and the invoice is due 14 days after it's issued, and you'll pay 50% up front. But at no point did it say you will actually pay it. You must pay it. And I just read it again. Oh, my gosh, you're totally right. So I guess this incident really motivated us to get tighter on our terms so that we were protected. We're talking about client relationships and standing up for yourself and boundaries. And if I'm going to call you on a technicality and I'm going to go back to the contract, for me, that's the last resort. And usually the things have escalated to a point where we're really nitpicking about scope. So if it becomes a sort of she said, he said sort of situation, I need to pull out the contract, maybe I'm not going to work with you again. So I think it's great to protect you, also protect both of you. We promise to do what we said we would. You promised to pay us for what we did. But if you're going to pull out the contract and cite a specific clause, then maybe that relationship isn't going to last very long.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a funny one. It's a bit awkward to be like, per the contract. But I think because of how clear we are and how we brief and everything, I feel very comfortable saying, well, this wasn't included in the original scope. We can definitely do it for you, but we need to have a conversation about how the goalposts have changed.
I love that you do that, actually, because a lot of business owners get nervous with that sort of conversation of a client requesting more, but you as the service provider going, well, I don't mind doing it. Absolutely. I'm here for you. I'm here to deliver until you're completely happy, but that is going to extend the time frame and the invoice. You're really good at that.
Oh, thank you. We're realistic about it. It's, if what you're asking is, it's not reasonable for me to deliver, the first lot of scope if the scope has now doubled. I think it's it's a reasonable request for me to say, well, now I need more time.
Yes.
Instead of, okay, I can cram double the amount of work into it. And I welcome the increase in scope, because it means that we're proving our expertise in different ways, and we're proving that we can be trusted and we're reliable. And to your point about your listener who, she could have dealt with, I guess, the setting boundaries in a different way. And I'm sure that from now on she will, she's learned from that and she'll do things slightly different, as we all have in business. It's really not personal. It's not that they're saying, I don't like you. It's, I don't like the work that you've done, which is very connected for us creatives. We put our heart and soul into everything. But, we say to our clients, if you don't respond with at least 5 exclamation marks in your email, we're back to the drawing board. If it's not oh my gosh, we love it, then I can tell if you're not happy, and we keep working till we are within the goalposts that we've set.
Yeah, I love that. And then your clients are happy in the end because everything was clear right throughout the whole journey working with you. They're going to give you a great review in the end because the way you dealt with the project, the way you delivered, the way you communicated with them. And that's why they keep sending you referrals, because communication is everything in business, and it continues to help your studio grow and continue to succeed. So you're doing such a great job, and I really appreciate you teaching us the ways of how a successful studio runs and how we can manage our client relationships better. I think we've learned a lot from you today, Trish. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Anything else you want to add, or where can people follow you?
So our website, openstone.com.au, is a great place to, I guess, learn more about how we work and what we value and why our relationships are so successful, because we link back to the values that we've set and how we want to treat people and how we want to be treated as a team. I guess what we stand for. But there's a lot of good reading on the website, but Instagram is a great place to get an idea of the type of work we do from a portfolio sense, to see our style, to see, I guess, our brand voice and what we hold close to our heart, and just, get a visual idea of who we are.
Yeah, I love your brand voice, and your brand messaging is so on point. So I think people need to go to your website to read your copy, to read your messaging, because you'll get an idea of how a brand speaks about their brand to their audience in a really successful way. So go and have a look, my friends. I'll link Trish's website and social media in the show notes, so it's easy for you to get to. But so much joy speaking to you today, Trish. Beautiful woman, beautiful friend of mine. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, and I will see you very soon.
For a cup of chai with some
some good honey. Yes.
Good honey. Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today, friends. I hope you found that episode valuable. Get in touch with me over on Instagram at Grace Costa Photographer. Let me know your thoughts, what you got out of it, what you're going to implement when it comes to client relationships in your own business. And in the meantime, download my free photo comp mega list. You can get it by heading to my website and signing up to my mailing list, and I will send it right to you. Until next time, friends, I'll catch you on the next episode of the Photo Diaries. That's it for today's episode. If you found it valuable, I invite you to leave a review so more people can find this podcast, or simply subscribe to be notified when each new episode drops. Until next time, see you later.